Hey gang, David Guppel, Thinker Farmer here. I wanted to go ahead and give y'all probably the biggest update of the year for me, the next big step. So a little over 2 months ago, Greg Judy did a YouTube video on his channel and went ahead and promoted me for a farm management position. So in the past 2.5 months, I've been busy getting back, interviewing with talking either on the phone or emailing with 30 to 40 different people, and it's been a very busy time. I haven't posted as many YouTube videos for that reason. On top of that, my mom has just really had a battle with cancer. She passed recently, and so I haven't had time to really do a lot of videos. And about a week or two ago, I made the decision to go ahead and commit to a farm, and so I wanted to go ahead and share the reasons that I chose this farm business as the next opportunity for me to serve and grow as an individual and as a farmer, and really beat Greg to the punch because I know he's also going to post a video telling about what I'm going to do, and I'd rather y'all hear about it before the rest of the world does. So the farm I chose is in North Missouri. The name of the farm is Powell Cattle Company. It's owned and operated by Alan and Tanya Powell, and they are not far from Brookfield, Missouri is the nearest major city. They raise Red Angus, South Pole Heifer seed stock, and right now some of their sales are through the sale barn, some of it is private, and cattle is primarily what they do. And they've really struggled to find good help. And Alan is, he's been a cattleman his whole life since he was 13 years old. He's now in his late 60s, and they need some help on the farm. And they want me to come on as a manager and move the different herds around, manage the grass, and generally be a person to oversee and do a lot of the management for the properties. So before I go on and share all the reasons that I chose the Powell Cattle Company, please realize if you're somebody, one of those other 30-something people that reached out to me via YouTube, please realize that a lot of these reasons here also apply to other opportunities that I had. So there is, at the end of the day, I had to pray through a lot of these decisions. Sometimes it was the location of the farm. Sometimes it was the exact context of what the farm was doing and where I was going. But just realize, or please realize, that if you're thinking to yourself, I was one of those opportunities and David was not able to work for me, please don't think that I'm saying you were not one of these wonderful character qualities on this list. There were a lot of good opportunities, and I eventually just had to sift through and pray about where I would be the best fit. Essentially at the top of the board, as it says there, choosing a farm business to serve. The question I had to ask myself was, where can I do the most good for the most people, and where do I fit in the best? So with that being said, these are 9 reasons that I chose to, I'm choosing next year to work with Alan and Tanya Powell at their cattle company in North Missouri. And I think these are a lot of good reasons for picking someone to work with your farm team or choosing a farm business to serve with. So the first one is thank you or appreciation. So Alan was a very grateful individual. He was so appreciative of me taking the time to interview with him on the phone and in person. He actually sent me a text and said, thank you for reaching out and considering us. And he really he impressed me. He not only was he courteous as an individual in person, but he, a day or two later, sent me a thank you text and said, I really appreciate y'all considering our farm. And what that told me was that he had a lot of appreciation for me as a farmer and an individual, and whatever I did on his farm, he would have a lot of, you'd be grateful for it, and he wouldn't take it for granted. And so that is important because not every farm out there is going to appreciate or understand how much sacrifice you're making in moving to their area and growing as an individual. The second reason I chose the Powell Cattle Company is openness and honest communication. So Alan was very open as an individual. There weren't really any secrets. There was not I didn't feel like I was being kept in the dark on anything. He was very open about what the farm was doing and just very honest, very direct. And that gave me a lot of peace to know that I was working with somebody that was just very down to earth with me. Third reason is patience. So Alan is a very patient individual. As a stockman, he works cattle slowly and methodically. And with me, it's been a 2.5-month ordeal between working at Greg Judy's, dealing with my mom's health situation, and coordinating with all of these different people to have the conversation. Because even if I'm not going to pursue the farm opportunity, it's important at the end of the day to touch base with every person that gives you an opportunity, and even if it's just to say thank you, but no thank you. And so Alan has had to be patient with me. It's taken me a number of weeks to touch base, call on the phone, and then go in person and interview, and then also to make a decision in the middle of dealing with family concerns. So he's been very patient as an individual. And I want to work with somebody that I know has the character quality of patience, because I'm going to make mistakes. Everybody does, and I'm going to mess up. Fourth reason. So the Alan and Tanya Powell are very generous with their farm as a whole. They're willing to give me opportunities to grow and potentially even build or add on a different enterprise, and just an open hand to allow me to manage and figure out what works best. And they're not locked in to pursuing or fitting me into a single square. And you want somebody to work with that is always going to have some generosity. They're going to deal with you with an open hand and just give you a little bit of forgiveness. So fifth reason is simple lifestyle, and I put with diversity. So right now the farm is just cattle, and it's a lot of cattle. There's I'll get into the size and the scale of the farm later, but the farm we're just grazing a lot of livestock. I'm not going to be managing thousands of chickens. There's not even going to be pigs or sheep. It's just cattle. And on the one hand, it's nice to have a diverse ecosystem, but because we're basing our farm production model on grass and silvopasture, we already have a diverse ecosystem that is going to be grown over time. And it would be awesome to add sheep or other enterprises, but for me, managing early on, the fact that it's just one species, and it could be 2 or 3, but the point here is you don't want to be managing something where you're managing 5 or 6 different species, at least not at the onset, because it's a recipe for burnout. It creates a lifestyle where you're trying to manage too many things. You really, as a grass farmer, if you manage more than 2 or 3 different enterprises, you're probably going to run into trouble. It's just too much to manage and manage well. So on the whole, the farm in North Missouri, Powell Cattle Company, it's a simple lifestyle, and there's going to be room to take days off over the course of the year. I love working on the farm, but working on the farm all day, every single day it's a recipe for burnout, and it's not right. So, sixth reason, good compensation. And I'm not going to belabor that point, but for anybody out there considering a grazing operation and you're really eager to start, working with somebody or getting access to land or working for another farm, know that you have to figure out how to pay for yourself and take care of yourself. If you are not able to make a full-time income and you're working your tail off, then one of two things is the problem. Either you're not worth it as an individual, which is really a bad thing to even consider. Every individual, if they have a good work ethic and they're willing to think and grow as an individual, you may not be able to make over $50K a year, but you certainly should be able to make a full-time income and be able to live comfortably. So And on top of that, if you can't get good compensation from a farm or a farmer, then it could also mean the farm business is not worth it. And if the farm business is not profitable, you really don't want to be there. So, seventh reason, experience. That experience level should match what you are as an individual and what you want to do as an individual. So Alan, like I said, he's been doing cattle for over 50 years. I'm inexperienced, definitely in comparison to his background. I've raised a lot of chickens, done a lot of pigs. I have general farm experience working different places. But as far as cattle go, the last year has been great, and I've had some other experiences previously, but not a whole lot with cattle. So for me, wanting to develop as an individual, it's really wise for me to find somebody that is very experienced that I can match with and grow. And that may be different for other individuals. If you are really entrepreneuring and you want to try a bunch of different new things or crazy things, and you want to run your own show, it's hard for me to define a context because a different context that would work better for me, because if you've only had a couple years of experience with cattle, I really believe you need, because of how many years it takes to run a successful grass-based cattle business, I really think you need 4 or 5 years of experience to really say, I'm going to run off on my own and do something. So, and again, the person you're working with has to match what you want to do. So it might be that you'd be a really experienced individual, and you may not want somebody inexperienced to leverage with energy. You might want somebody else that's very experienced. And anyway, the point is you need to factor in the experience factor when you're making a decision who to work with. Number 8 is that the Powell Cattle Company is investing heavily in grass. So their farm is it's several thousand acres, and they have a lot of grass and pasture land that they're seeking to manage and improve. And when I was choosing through different farms, location-wise, the Powell Cattle Company is out there. It's in a very rural area of North Missouri. And I said, I'm okay with being out in a very rural farm community when I know that I'm going to be investing heavily in grass. They've got a lot of land and a lot of opportunity to grow and develop. So if I was investing in a farm that was only, say, a couple hundred acres, there's going to be more production limitations. And with fertilizer costs going up and fossil fuels going up and all sorts of different inputs across the farmscape going up, I think it's really important. You don't necessarily have to be in the thousands of acres scale, but you need to have a certain amount of scale in order to make this farm work. You can't do that on 20 to 30 acres. It's going to take 100, 200 acres, and having several thousand acres, or a large land base where your production is primarily based on the sun and water, things that, at least as of now, they're not being taxed. That's a really good thing. And the last reason is community. So there's a grazing community in North Missouri. The Powells are part of it. Greg and Judy are part of it. And there's a number of other like-minded regenerative farmers in the North Missouri area, and they get together every month and have a meal together and discuss their grazing plans. And I've spent plenty of time as a Lone Ranger previous to Greg Judy's and other farming experiences. And so I know that, while I can function alone as an individual, it isn't the wisest thing to do. It's not best for me. And it's a selfish way to live when you're just working all on your own. You want to be in a group of individuals where you can encourage one another and build community. And this was something that Mom specifically asked me to do was, David, whenever you pick a farm, pick some place where you can be close to friends and build community around you. And it simply is acknowledging the fact that no man is an island. And it's not good for a man to work alone or be alone. You need to, and that doesn't just apply to marriage, that applies to building friends, building a farm team. And it doesn't have to be expansive, but it needs to add into a few individuals. So the community atmosphere of the Green Hills Farm Project, and the fact that I'm actually not going to be that far from Greg and Jan, and so I can visit Isaac and Ike, were big pluses in choosing the Powell Cattle Company in North Missouri. So in conclusion, I would simply say there's a lot of opportunity out there for a grass farmer. And even if you don't have Greg Judy do a plug on his YouTube channel, if you are patient, and I want to emphasize this, wait for the right fit. Don't rush a decision. If you have to spend a few months, it may you may emotionally feel like you're yo-yoing and just going back and forth, but choose wisely. Make sure you have peace before you go ahead and make the commitment. For me, it actually happened pretty fast after the in-person interview with Alan, and I prayed about it, and I knew I had peace. And so, yeah, going forward, I'm sure I'll be doing some other videos, and you'll be seeing some of the cool things going on at the Powell Cattle Company. So, thanks for listening, gang, and blessings for the journey.